Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Armchair Crew Chief. We are heading into our last leg of the first West Coast trip that we have, and we had some interesting racing going on and some not so interesting racing. My name's Jordan, and I am joined by my lovely wife, Rebecca, and we are going to just go ahead and dive into it. Don't forget to like, comment, follow, share this podcast so we can get this thing growing and be able to bring more things to you guys going forward. And let's go ahead and dive into it. Let's go ahead and start with the trucks. Trucks took a hit from what we were talking about in the past because it started at 9 o'clock Eastern on a Friday. So let's go ahead and dive into our qualifying and discuss our top 10. That we going from 10 to 1, we had Grant Enfinger starting 10th, Daniel Dye 9th, Nick Sanchez, Zane Smith, Ty Majeski. 5th was Tyler Ankrum, Kyle Busch 4th, Stuart Friesen, Christian Eckes, and Raja Caruth got the pole. So our Cup Series regulars that we had were Kyle Busch, Christopher Bell, and those were the two guys that we had running in the Truck Series for that. Moving on, we had, I don't know, it was an interesting race to go on. You know,
it was very windy.
Yes, it was super windy. The whole weekend was super windy. Mm-hmm. Fox was trying to do their interviews before the race, and I mean, all you could hear was the wind blowing through the microphone.
Yeah.
So it was very, very windy. Listening to that,
the Vegas showgirls at the beginning of the race had their big headdresses on, and it looked like the wind was going to pop their heads off. It was blowing so hard.
So yeah, it was wild. Finishing off stage 1, we had our top 5 was Corey Hyman 5th, Tyler Ankrum, Stuart Friesen, Raja Caruth, and Ty Majeski. Going into stage 2, we had top 5 was Kyle Busch, Taylor Gray, Raja Caruth, Corey Hyman, and Ty Majeski. Majeski was pretty good throughout the race, but so was Raja. He was up there moving around. Kyle Busch, fighting through his troubles that he had during the race, he did pretty decently as well.
I think this was a pretty good race for Vegas with the trucks because there wasn't too many people that just got a huge lead.
No, and I'm trying to find our lap results here on the running, but they didn't. I don't think it was that crazy of a race for it to be a runaway. I mean, we had a 32-second race, 32-second lap on the last for the race for the leader, and 31 for below, which is kind of normal. Going at it towards the end, but it wasn't too bad. It wasn't like some of the other ones that seems kind of like a snooze fest when we talk about the racing. Mm-hmm. Going on, but yeah, it was. He got his first. So Raja got the pole by 0.001 seconds over Christian Eckes.
Wow,
so
that was real close.
Yeah, it was pretty close.
Raja, his first pole.
I believe it was his first pole too. Yeah, his first pole of his career. Mm-hmm. So Truck Series pole, I should say. So his crew, they were pretty good, pretty strong. It was a pretty interesting race to watch. There wasn't a lot of wrecking going on, which is nice to see that these guys can actually run without wrecking.
Yeah, and surprising because of how bad the wind was.
Yeah, the wind made it really bad. But just going forward with everything, it was so. Let's just go ahead and dive into it. We had our top 10 were Ty Majeski in 10th, Grant Enfinger 9th, Zane Smith, Matt Crafton, Christian Eckes, Christopher Bell, Taylor Gray, Corey Heim, Tyler Ankrum, and our winner was Raja Caruth. This is his first win, and he won by 0.851 seconds.
Yeah, so it was...
And then just to kind of give you an idea too, third, was 1.287 seconds. So this was a fairly close race throughout, back and forth. It
was probably the best racing of the weekend.
Yeah, I would say so. Raja makes history, becoming only the third black man to win a NASCAR sanctioned race. And this goes to Wendell Scott and Bubba Wallace as the other two gentlemen that have accomplished this feat. So, I think he's probably better than the driver of the 23, and he'll show it in the future. And, that's just sitting there at talent. I don't want to say talent, but I think he'll turn out to be a better driver than Bubba. I know it's hard to say, and some people will smack it down. And Bubba Wallace,
I don't know if he is necessarily going to be a better driver than Bubba, but he has a better attitude, which will in turn make him a better driver.
Yeah. The only thing in my book he has going against him is he's a Hendrick Motorsports person.
Yeah.
So, not too much to talk about. I mean, it was a close race. It was fun watching it. It was interesting watching the beginning of the race where they're talking to him and he's following behind Kyle Busch. He wanted to pass Kyle Busch, but then he decided to follow behind him, and he watched what was going on in front of him and then made changes in his style from that. Mm-hmm. So, overall, pretty good. Pretty interesting race to watch. Again, it started at 9 o'clock, so it didn't finish till past 11 o'clock, unfortunately. So people didn't get to watch it because of how things are. So, moving on to the Xfinity Series race, which I think we can come to the conclusion was the worst racing of the group.
Of the three.
So, starting off with our lineup here, we had our top five was Austin Hill, Parker Retzlaff, AJ Allmendinger, Chandler Smith, and Cole Custer. Retzlaff has been doing pretty good, hanging up there with everybody. I don't have the statistics on his best finishes, but he's usually around in the mix of things, in the top 10, I would say.
Yeah, if he doesn't get crashed.
Yeah. Stage 1, we had our top five were Custer, Herbst, Austin Hill, John Hunter Nemechek, and Chandler Smith. Stage 2, we had Allmendinger, Allgaier, Herbst, John Hunter, and Chandler Smith. So,
speaking of Parker, though, he was the first caution in this race.
I don't remember it.
Yeah, he got loose and hit somebody else.
Austin Hill had some issues. Again, this was a windy race.
Yeah, another very windy race.
Chandler Smith says he just over-adjusted. That was his issue because he was up there hanging around. One person that wasn't.
He was.
One person that wasn't up there really. That he ended. Let's see where he ended up finishing was Sheldon Creed. He's been running up front the past other two races of the season, running up there, and he didn't. This wasn't his track, even when he was running.
No, he got up there for a little bit, but I think he didn't have very good handling.
Yeah, so he finished 26th at the race, and I don't know. It was
quite frankly, I don't remember too much of the race because it was super boring.
And the reason we're saying it's super boring is just like pretty much 99% of the mile and a halves that come out here. And I'm not lumping. I know Atlanta's a mile and a half, but I don't lump Atlanta in a mile and a half since it's a super speedway. It's not the stereotypical mile and a half. The lead car gets out to a ridiculous lead.
Yeah.
And you can't catch them. And I don't like that kind of race.
Me neither.
I'd rather see some people battle for it as long as they don't pull Logano at Martinsville or Denny Hamlin at Pocono or stuff like that. I think it's great to watch.
There wasn't, but that's the problem because there isn't much racing because they just get in a line and the Xfinity one was the worst of it. It was bad.
So Sam Mayer got pulled out with an accident, SVG, and engine trouble. He had engine troubles. He got pulled out early. He ended up finishing his day just after 27 laps. Engine was overheating and having that issue. Sage Karam had some issues. Parker Retzlaff had some issues because, like I said, he qualified well, but this race he just didn't do so well.
He was the first caution.
I thought you said it was Kligerman.
No, Parker Retzlaff. What you were
Retzlaff?
saying, yeah.
Okay.
I can't say his last name.
So, yeah, there you go. The Parker Retzlaff turned sideways in front of him. He just got loose right in front of Sam Mayer on lap 8.
Yeah.
Is what it was. So, it was... Some of the racing was interesting. Going back to what we were talking about, Haley Deegan finished 15th.
Yeah.
Eric Almirola ran this race. He finished 12th. Kligerman 11th. Our top 5 were Riley Hurts, Austin Hill, Chandler Smith, Cole Custer, and John Hunter. And then the reason that
Cole Custer had a good car. He was getting around some people.
Yeah.
At the end,
it's just when you run away with this race, you can't catch the person
because John Hunter got a 4-second lead.
Yeah, so he finished with a 4.3 second lead over second place and 4.6 seconds over third place.
Yeah.
Which he was doing this last year too. So, and I don't want to say it. I don't think it's too much talent because you look at whoever gets out there. I mean, shoot, when
it's whoever gets out there, and as long as you keep your track position,
right. As long as you keep your track position and your car is somewhat decent, you're going to stay out there. Mm-hmm. So, that was that. We did have some post-race inspection failures with these. The number 9 and 42 each had one lug nut not secure, so their crew chiefs got fined. I think it was $5,000. I think is the fine. So, yeah, that was the change there on that. Something just popped up on social medias, and they were kind of joking around it. They were talking about Formula One finish versus NASCAR finish, but then you look at that was Atlanta with the close finish with the Cup Series, but then you have this weekend, and it was a Formula One finish, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
So moving right along into our Cup Series, our qualifying. Let's see. Qualifying, we had.
Well, first Ryan Preece crashed and backed into the wall, tore up his car, so he didn't get to qualify.
Okay, so that was during practice then. Mm-hmm. Qualifying, our top 5 were Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Austin Cindric, Kyle Larson, and Logano got the pole. So Ford has swept the poles this year for Cup Series.
And I was surprised they did because Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson were the fastest 2 in practice. But it didn't show up in qualifying. Yeah.
Which this race here is the race where if people were doubting Stewart Haas showed up. It's almost like they just showed up late to the test.
Yeah, well, and Noah Gragson, too, his team was telling him because right before qualifying kicked off, they had a sandstorm go across the backstretch.
Yeah,
and they were like, don't run so hard. So he didn't get a good.
But I'm talking about in general, start. Like when we talk about the end of the race, Stewart Haas was up there, mm-hmm. and a lot of people started writing Stewart-Haas off. And there's some news that we'll talk about later too about that brings that idea that Stewart-Haas is just along for the ride pretty much. But moving on, our stage 1 finish, top 5 were Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Truex, 3rd, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson. Stage 2.
Hold on. Also, Christopher Bell crashed in the first stage because he blew a right rear tire. And I'm not picking Christopher Bell anymore. Let's see what happens. Hopefully he does better this week.
Yeah, Christopher Bell blew a tire. We still had tire issues. We had tire issues last year at this track. Goodyear apparently brought a new compound for the left side, I believe it was.
Yeah, but then the right sides were blowing.
The right sides were blowing. Chris Buescher had issues. His tire fell off.
His wheel fell off.
Yeah, it wasn't seated right. Bubba Wallace had an issue with a lug nut not sitting right.
No, they got stuck.
Was his the one that got stuck?
Yeah, so he was sitting a long time. They couldn't get it off.
Truex had the same issue, too, where it was stuck or it wasn't seating right, and so they weren't sending him out, and he lost track position because of that, and that was later on in the race.
Yeah.
So
the sad part about this race is just like I have it written all over. It was boring. It was so boring. It was just boring.
And I want to call it boring. I partially want to call it boring due to Fox. I'm blaming Fox for this.
Well, partially, but no, it was boring too because...
But we didn't see some of the racing going in the back. Just like what Dale Jr. said in the past when he was when he calls races. He's like, it's so hard for me to stay focused on the front where TV wants to stay.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching these battles in 29th, 30th. And, that's the beauty of going to these tracks. Or if you find a driver, splurge and spend the $12 or whatever it is. It might be $20 for the year long because you're actually going to get 40-some races out of it. And get the scanner and the in-car camera for your favorite driver and watch the race from how they do it. Now, NASCAR does do some silly things when they swap cameras or swap the camera angles around on the car, but you're seeing it from the perspective closer to what your driver's doing, so you can see some of those battles, you can see some of the moving back and forth that you can't see when you're watching it on TV and you're watching a commercial for what feels like 89% of the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's one of the big things that I would say to do. But moving on, stage 2, Truex was 5th, Blaney 4th, Hamlin...
Christopher Bell spun again.
Yeah. Hamlin 3rd, Reddick 2nd, Larson 1st.
So, as you can imagine, Larson won, because that's just how it goes.
He led
at the 1.5.
He led 181 laps. He got 60 points because he swept everything. Yeah. Reddick came in second.
Reddick was so close to catching him too.
Right. So this is the one thing we say this race was boring, and it was. It was dull.
It was.
But towards the end, Tyler Reddick came close, but then I think he overused the stuff. They're like, oh, he didn't make.
It's because they Larson takes away his line, and he can't get past him. That slows him down. That's how they get out in front so far. He couldn't do anything to get around him because Larson kept taking his line.
So Reddick ended up finishing 0.4 of a second behind Larson.
And when he got out, he was so mad.
And to give you an idea of why we're still calling this race boring is because third place was 3.87 seconds, almost 4 seconds behind everybody.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, to put it in an idea, so Larson first, Reddick second, Blaney third, Chastain fourth, Gibbs fifth. Gragson got sixth, Truex got seventh, Denny Hamlin eighth, Logano ninth, William Byron 10th, Suarez 11th, and Elliott 12th. So Elliott came back. He did fairly well. Mm-hmm. Remember, he didn't run this race last year because he decided to go and Shaun White it and break his leg. So
he didn't really Shaun White it.
No. But, It was kind of dull, and then
it was very dull. It was just very boring.
But then, what everybody thought was going to happen, and then Bubba didn't do it. It was they were coming up to Bubba and lapping Bubba, and and even TV said that is Bubba going to block and slow Larson down to help his teammate, and Bubba was just like F it and let him go.
Well, I think he tried to do. I think
he didn't do nothing.
No, I think he tried to do what he did before in the second stage. I think it was where he got behind Reddick and kind of pushed him. And I think he tried to do that again, but he didn't have his car was crap.
He had no momentum, so he wouldn't have been able to do that.
Yeah.
William Byron, he had a nice. I can't remember. I think that was the second stage. He had a nice trash bag.
Trash bag. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I was reading somewhere that Byron's.
No, it was the first. It was the first stage.
Okay. I read after the fact his crew chief said they believe there was a beer can in it, and I think they said that they found a beer can in his air cleaner box.
Yeah, it was an entire trash bag.
Yeah, this thing was huge.
Like, over the entire front of it. He had to come in because he was overheating. Like a 50-gallon
trash can.
Yeah, like a big black trash bag. He had to come in and do a green flag pit stop because he was going to overheat.
But, I mean...
It's just because there was so much wind.
Right.
So much wind.
So, this was Larson's second straight win in Vegas, and his 10th for Hendrick. Hendrick has won 4 straight spring races at this track, the mile-and-a-half track, and it was the 3rd straight win for Chevrolet to start the season. So, Chevy has won all 3.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's annoying because you see all this stuff, and we'll talk about some things that people are. I think they're grasping at straws, but it makes you think, and that's what I want to think about. That's what I want to pull it out to. I'm thinking, but it's. I don't know. It's dull. It's silly. I did see we did have some more penalties pop up. And this was more or less for Chris Buescher and his team due to the fact that he lost the wheel and it was outside. And even though the wheel cut, they're claiming that it was cut around because of the rotor and all that. So
yeah, but it's so weird because they say this stuff, and usually that happens like pretty close to after they pit. And I feel like he was out there a lot longer.
Yeah, and. I don't know. It was early in the race because it was the 28th lap where where the caution came. Mm-hmm. So it was right after Christopher Bell spun, and they came in.
They red flagged it too because they had to check the wall or something.
Yeah. So when Buescher was it that one that they red flagged? So Buescher hit the wall pretty hard. They didn't check the wall. They actually re-welded a metal plate onto the safer barrier.
Oh, okay.
And they had to put because the way he hit it, he put a hole in the wall in the safer barrier. But the safer barrier, if anybody wants to kind of give an idea, I'm trying to think on. It's a box. It's a rectangle tubing of aluminum or steel. It's probably steel, not aluminum. Goes around the track. It feels light. You can tap it, and then the safer barrier part of it is, like your pink foam that you go buy, Corning pink foam you go get at Home Depot, just made into triangular blocks, and that sits in behind it, and that's supposed to be the cushioning. But so they suspended his jackman and his front tire changer the next 2 races. So they're going to be suspended for Phoenix. We're going to be at next week, this week, and then next week at Bristol.
Yeah. I'm not really excited for Phoenix because it's just like
it's the same thing except for you have a dog leg.
Boring. It can be very boring.
So I mean that's where we're moving on next is Phoenix. But I mean again, it was kind of one of those dull, boring things that happened. Ty Gibbs had an issue with an uncontrolled tire that caused some issues with him because he actually got back to his form from last year where he was running quietly and up in like the top 10, top 15,
yeah,
which is what he was doing last year. He kept his mouth shut, didn't do anything stupid with his car and ran it.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. Ross Chastain had a pit road speeding penalty that he came back from. And, so he finished fourth, and he had that pit road speeding penalty on a green flag stop nonetheless.
Yeah.
The 8 had issues too on pit road. But it's kind of annoying to see Rick Hendrick with all these wins, and the comments that like you heard him say after Daytona, where we couldn't have written a better script. It's all these trigger words that it could mean nothing, but with given past history and how things have gone in the past, and we're talking like 20 years ago past, and even 10 years ago past, where things have happened and you wonder why it happened, and then Hendrick car comes out and wins or something like that. So that's a big change there, or not a big change there, but that's a big thing that happened. Something else that kind of came up with this was Kyle Larson's son Owen came running out on the track to meet Dad. Then Owen climbed on the top of the car.
Yeah.
And jumped on it. Then, and they said, I think it was, I can't remember who said it. I don't think it was Bob Pockris, but it was somebody around his stature, said all within 5 minutes, Owen Larson goes out there, pulls on the rear spoiler, deforms it. Then comes out and jumps on the top of the hood of the car, or the roof of the car, and then pulls the window out.
Yeah.
Totally, could botch post-race inspection for this car if they did, depending on how it was, just because of what he did. And so people labeled him as a cheater. I don't think that was it. He's too young to do that stuff, and I don't think Kyle would put his kid in there. I know we talked about
it was just kind of, it was very weird.
It was dumb.
But going before this, though, one of the things that is really frustrating with the broadcasting is they show Larson win and Reddick come in second, and then you see nobody else go across the line. Really,
did they even show? They had to show Reddick just because of how close he was. But yeah, they stick to Larson doing a victory lap, or a cool down lap, pretty much. And they're not even really talking about who finishes, fifth, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth, or whatever. And they stick on Larson, and that's a poo-poo on Fox, because you got to show the rest of the race. You just can't stick on Larson.
No, they didn't show the rest of the race. And then just in Fox's is their thing that they do. It's, they talked to Larson because he won. Yeah. And they talked to Reddick. Did they talk to anyone else? I don't remember them talking to anyone else. I think, and it's like, so you only saw those two finish the race. You only talked to those two. So nobody else in the race matters.
I think that's a product of trying to jam everything on Fox. And they ran this one on Fox TV. Now, obviously, it's not changed if they're on FS1 or something. But they used to do a post race where you would turn it to FS1 or you have 3 channels within Fox that you can go to, because you're on Fox main channel, the over the air broadcast. Bump it over to FS1. We're in college basketball. We can't do that. Well, then bump it to FS2. What are you going to do? Knock off pickleball?
Yeah. Right, but it's just really dumb that you can't even see your driver across the line.
Well, I'll even go one step further, and they didn't even show like the crew celebrating until the very end. It was just stuck on the car driving around the track, which is ridiculous. Whoever is running this production truck, and we said this before, they need to be fired or something.
Yes,
this is just absurd.
It is.
So, as much as
But then too, sometimes I don't know even if it's just production, because it's everything else, because you don't even hear the commentators talking about any other people.
Yeah, but they have the producers stuck in their ear on what they're doing. And as we've known, even though Dale Jr. has refuted this by saying it's fake, they're calling this race by monitors most of the time. They may look out the window here and there, But most of the time, these guys are looking at the monitors. It's just okay.
So they're just talking about what they see, and what they see is
this
what
is
Fox puts on there.
WWE all over again. If you watch WWE, they're sitting ringside calling the wrestling, but they're not looking at the ring that is 5, 6, 8 feet in front of them. They're looking down at a monitor on their screen until the wrestler gets put through their table.
Yeah.
It's kind of the same thing. You might see them glance up at it, but they're calling what you see on TV. And yes, I get to somebody that will come back and complain saying, well, they got to see they got to call what they see on TV. But at the same time, you got to have somebody, you have 3 people in that booth.
But it's almost like you should have, the commentator should be commentating what's going on the track, and the camera should be following what they say, not the other way around.
Well, this is how I think, and this falls for NBC too. And you have 3 people plus in that booth. Mm-hmm. You have your play-by-play analyst, call what's on the TV. You have your color analyst, just comment and piggyback off the 2 other people or 3 other people. But then you have the other guy, like in Fox's case, it's Harvick now. Mm-hmm. It's not Boyer. Boyer's color. Mm-hmm. He needs to keep his eye out there. Look at the TV, but then look out, and see what's going on the track. Because you could see somebody spinning, and they've spun for a while. The caution's thrown, but they won't talk about it because they need to complete their thought.
Yeah.
And this under-the-helmet crap that Fox is doing right now, save it for pre-race. Save it for... what's that show that they do during the week? Race Nation or whatever it is.
Race Hub.
Save that stuff for that.
Right.
Nobody wants to watch that crap while they're watching the race.
No.
They're already stuck having to stick through stupid commercials.
Well, and we're already stuck through seeing just one part of the race. You know, like, they used to do, well, we're going to go through the field, and they don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Well, they did. They went through the field a little bit. I don't think they did crank it up.
No, they don't do crank it up anymore.
They did. They didn't do it this past week.
No, they don't go through the field like they used to.
Well, they don't go through the whole field. They went through like top 10 or something like that at like Daytona or at Atlanta, one of the races.
I don't know. It's silly. Yeah, it's like, well, and like you said, Anthony Alfredo spun. Nobody ever saw it. They never even talked about it.
Right.
Because they're looking at the monitors and they didn't show it. So nobody saw it.
Right.
Unless you were at the race.
Right.
It's really dumb.
So moving on to our frustrations at the track, and we'll dive into some of these other stuff. I want to go into power rankings that have been put out. I think it's too early to be talking about power rankings, but apparently NASCAR.com has been talking about it for a while. Because, and I'll go through the top 10 and I'll tell you. So you have starting in our power ranking 10th, Joey Logano. Apparently he was down 2 spots from last week. Then you have Reddick, who's up 5 spots to 9th. And then you have Denny Hamlin 8th, down 4 spots. He was actually season high ranked number 1. I don't. Besides him peeing himself, there hasn't really been too much going on with him.
How is Reddick below him?
I don't know. Kyle Busch down 4 spots. Then you go into Ty Gibbs up 1 spot. This was his 5th career top 5 finish at Vegas to give him consecutive top 10 finishes, which we were talking about that before, where he's been quietly running top 15 or so. 5th, Ross Chastain up 7 spots. Then you go into Truex up 5 spots. Season high was 9 for Truex. And season low was 10th. What in the world? What are these people smoking?
I don't get how they're rating this.
William Byron down 2. So he was 1 last week. How is he 1 when he didn't even win the race? I mean, he won Daytona.
Yeah.
But whatever. I don't know. This is because he got a top 10 in Atlanta. That's why. Season low, number 4. Number 2, Ryan Blaney.
How is Blaney? Blaney doesn't even do anything.
Stayed second. It's because he actually ran up. He's been running quietly up there and doing stuff. That's why. Back-to-back top 3 finishes for Blaney, one of which was a near win. Heads back to the track where he hoisted the trophy last fall. Champ doing champ things, the number 12. Can't win the title Sunday, but he can do something he failed to do last fall, and that's win the race outright, as he just may do that. Remember, Blaney, that's right. Blaney didn't win the race last year. He was a champion, though.
Yeah.
It's the first time this happened in NASCAR. I think NASCAR got a little upset about that.
Yeah.
And then number 1 was Kyle Larson, up 4 spots. And here's your color commentary on there. And we're back. He looks like a slam dunk championship 4 bet this year. Mind you, we're 3 races into this thing, and we're calling him a slam dunk. NASCAR, stop drinking. You're too drunk right now.
Yeah.
I would not call him. It's too early in the race to call anybody a slam dunk championship 4.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a slam dunk playoff. Even before he won, I'd call him a slam dunk playoff person.
Oh yeah.
And maybe a round of 8.
Yeah, I don't like William Byron. He has 2 things against him why I don't like him. I don't think he's a bad driver. I think he's a good driver.
His personality's dull and boring.
He drives for Hendrick, so and then he's just very blah. Not much personality. I call him Mr. Vanilla.
Seabell was 11th, down 5 spots. Suarez.
Okay, Seabell's going to turn around this week because I'm not picking him to win.
Suarez, up 1 spot. The dude won the dang race. And he didn't crack the top 10.
Yeah.
Following up last week, going to be nearly impossible. Still, Suarez very nearly turned in consecutive top 10s for the first time since Texas and Talladega and the playoffs with the P11 at Vegas. Then why aren't you rating? Oh my gosh. But then you put Seabell in there. Seabell's been strong, but he's been finishing poorly because he's been wrecking and hurting himself.
Yeah.
Yet you have him ranked higher. So I think there's a little bit of bias going on here at NASCAR, which they don't want to talk about.
They love Chevy.
But Suarez is... No, they love Toyota. Why? Because you have Christopher Bell, who shouldn't be above Suarez.
Oh, true.
They love Hendrick, then Toyota. 13th, Chase Elliott, up 2 spots. This is officially the latest in the season Elliott has ever gone without landing a top 10. But we're still going to put him up there, and we're still going to put him above Bubba Wallace. I don't like Bubba Wallace, but Bubba Wallace has consistently finished ahead, except for last race, except for Vegas. So if we take Vegas out of it, the other 2 races, Bubba Wallace has a higher average finish than Chase Elliott.
Yeah.
But this is the favorite driver because he's an Elliott. If it was Chase Doe, he wouldn't be favorite driver. But then you have Bubba Wallace down 4 spots. So maybe he was, because he's down. He was up to 10th. I think that was a valid spot for him. Hot start on a major halt at Vegas. Pit road completely derailing the afternoon.
Yeah.
Then you have the plow, Brad Keselowski, up 2 spots. Chris Buescher, Mr. Buescher, down 5 spots. Alex Bowman down 1 spot.
Alex Bowman, ugh.
Eric Jones, 18th, not ranked. Ricky Stenhouse, up 1. And then Austin Cindric. That's your top 20 power rankings.
Okay, how is McDowell not even up there? Well, I guess he hasn't finished very well. But he was on the pole. He was second. He was second to the pole.
So you're asking
what?
about McDowell. Let's see.
I don't think he's finished very well.
We have our way too early driver standings that we're going to talk about right now. Number 1, and this does not include wins, even though we have some guys with wins. You have Larson, Blaney, Truex as your top 3. Then you have Byron, Chastain, Busch, Elliott, Suarez, Ty Gibbs, and Denny Hamlin as 10th. Corey LaJoie is 2 points below the cutoff line right now. He's down 5 spots because of how bad he ran at Vegas. 32nd finish, I think it was. After he led quite a few laps. And I'm pretty sure he led a few laps up there, or he was up there hanging around with the guys.
He was up there for a little bit. I think it was a whole track position thing, though. He didn't pit, and he stayed up there, and he didn't have the best car. Well, but he wasn't doing bad.
Here you go, McDowell. He's down 2 spots, 1 top 10 this year. He's led 37 laps, 3 starts. But then you go to his teammate, who I don't even see him on here, because he's got to be a lot higher up. So
so how is Ricky Stenhouse up there, and Corey LaJoie's not even on their power rankings?
I don't know.
Is Ricky only up there because he won the Daytona 500 last year?
I don't know. I mean, Ricky Stenhouse. If we look at it, okay, let's look at this, because they're right next to each other in the standings. Mm-hmm. You have LaJoie has a top 5, top 10. He's led 1 lap. Ricky, a top 10, a DNF, and led 1 lap. If we recall from last year, and this is I call Corey LaJoie the Iron Man, and I'll call him the Iron Man for this. He has a knack of getting out. Not being in the race retiring wrecks. Yeah. I think he only DNF'd like 3 times last year.
Last year he was the last person to not DNF.
Right. And he's starting that again. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's early in the season, so you don't have a lot of people with DNFs. Yeah. But I mean, if we want to start doing like NASCAR and pulling this stuff out, that's what's going on. I don't know. I still think it's too early. Why don't we do why don't we do a who peed their pants and talked about it? Yeah. Thing. Because that was Denny did it. Corey LaJoie funnily talked about that. He was trying to. He had to go really bad, which I find is interesting because listening to Truex had to go to the bathroom too in this race. And his spotter was like, it's all the rage to go in your pants. And he's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. That's not going to feel good. And then you have LaJoie sitting there like, I got to go. I'm going to start. He popped the lid off of his water bottle, about to sit there and try to go pee. And then he realizes he's got an in-car camera, and he didn't want Clint Boyer comparing notes.
He's like, yeah, no.
So he scrapped that, and he held it. So, it's...
Maybe that's why he finished so bad, because he had to pee.
Yeah, he was focusing on peeing more than he was racing. Who knows? That or he stopped too long because he ran out of the car to go pee or something. But, so going into the TV ratings for this race, which just went away from me. Here we go. Our Truck Series got 603,000 viewers, which, again, I think is decent because this race started at 9 Eastern on Friday night. Yeah. Xfinity race got 1.027 million viewers, which is pretty decent because you're fighting. We're getting into March. I mean, obviously we're in March, but you're getting into playoff college basketball. Mm-hmm. That dominates things. Mm-hmm. So, I would say that's pretty decent. Plus, they were only, 0.1 less than Formula One. Yeah. I don't know what time Formula One ran. They might have ran earlier in the middle, whatever. Oh. And then Fox, their broadcast for the Cup Series is actually up. Do they have the percentage on it? I don't see the percentage on it. But here we go. They earned 4.359 million viewers. It's up from 3.99. So that's a pretty big jump for viewership for Cup Series.
It's sad because that race stunk.
Then you go to Saturday's Okay, so going back to the Formula One race to compare it, it was down. It was 1.3 million viewers, which ran on a Sunday. So Bahrain moving to a Saturday lost 2/10 viewers, 200,000 viewers.
Yeah.
Because they moved. I think you're going to find that along. Again, what I said was playoff baseball. Or basketball, excuse me. College basketball. Playoff college basketball. I think that's going to be a big role here soon with NASCAR Cup Series, Xfinity Series. It's not. I don't think it's going to really mess around with the trucks because they're running on, unless they run a doubleheader. But you're running those, and you're going against just thinking about the other sports. Then you're going to run into playoff. Playoff basketball is probably not going to be that big of a deal. Professional.
No.
You got playoff hockey, which will run and take over some of the stuff. That's why NBC will never. If somebody ever wants NBC to run the Daytona 500, they're not going to do it because unless they completely lose.
But playoff hockey is usually at night.
Not on Saturdays.
No, I know, but
on Sundays.
There's not too much.
So
I don't see that competing.
We're running into March Madness.
Yeah.
And we're running into a lot of this stuff. So let's see what happens from there. It's going to be interesting to see going forward how everything looks, and how this can play out. There's still a lot of racing to go. That's why I don't like the fact that they're like, oh, this was a slam dunk for the championship to put Kyle Larson in there. I think that's just poppycock to be talking about that right now.
Yeah.
It's silly.
It is silly also because NASCAR wasn't thinking that Suarez was gonna win.
No,
so
I don't think they were.
They didn't think he was gonna make it into the playoffs.
No, I think Phoenix will be interesting to see, but we haven't hit our first short track. We're gonna go 2 super speedways, 2 intermediate, and 1 short. 2 shorts, really, because I think Richmond's small too, right? A mile track, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
So I don't think you call that an intermediate track.
No.
So that's why I said way too early. I don't think so.
Mm-hmm. So who do you think is going to win at Phoenix?
I don't know at Phoenix.
Because
it's probably another Chevrolet.
Isn't racing anymore, so Harvick, that is Harvick's racetrack.
In the past, not recently.
No, I know, but
he had some big turds recently.
So it'd be nice if Toyota would win.
It would be nice Toyota would win.
I'll pick Tyler Reddick since he did so well.
And then he goes and DNFs.
And let's hope that he does well.
So
then I'll pick Denny Hamlin so he can wreck.
So before we get in on this, they were saying, Atlanta said, I think it was within like a day or two of that race, so Monday or Tuesday last week, they pretty much almost sold out next year's racing, or later on this year's racing.
Atlanta?
Yeah, because of the wild finish. They've had people pushing to get out there and watch the race now.
Uh-huh.
I would want to watch a racer. I think it's going to be crazy.
Well, okay, Las Vegas and Phoenix will probably never be sold out that quickly because they're so bad.
No.
They're so bad.
All
they
right.
need to change something with them so that they can race better.
Phoenix is a mile racetrack. It runs like the other ones. Let's see. We were talking about that. We were talking about Richmond. So you have your next road course. So our next tracks for this month are, March was Vegas, Phoenix, Bristol, Circuit of the Americas, and Richmond. Those are your March races this year.
Okay, that's not too bad.
So
a little bit of variety.
Our previous winner, and these are spring race winners. We're going into a race where William Byron won.
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah, William Byron won a bunch of these last year in the beginning, and it was really annoying.
Then you have Christopher Bell at Bristol, but that's the dirt race, so that doesn't really hold too much to it. Circuit of the Americas was Tyler Reddick, and then Kyle Larson won at Richmond. Richmond is a 3/4 mile track. They call that a short track. They call Bristol short track. They call Phoenix. That doesn't make sense because They're calling Phoenix a super speedway as the track type.
Phoenix, no, that's
it's not a super speedway.
It's not.
It's
a little bit different than Vegas, but it's definitely not.
I think
super
it plays
speedway.
in the intermediate.
Yeah,
range.
I would say intermediate. I would not say super speedway for that.
Oh no.
There's.
And for anybody wondering where I'm getting this from, where I'm saying super speedway, because you're hearing us talk about this and question it, this is coming from NASCAR.com. I'm looking at their schedule right now to kind of give you an idea, and I'm going to see what they call Las Vegas. I mean, it should be called intermediate because we saw everything plastered around as intermediate racetrack, but they call Pocono super speedway.
No, Pocono's not a super speedway.
Indianapolis is a super speedway, so we got to figure out what the definition of super speedway is, because they're calling these super speedway. Michigan is super speedway. Where are we going here? I'm going
Indy
to Vegas.
could possibly
Vegas,
but it's not super speedway.
Vegas,
racing.
They're calling a super speedway as well.
No,
so we got to find NASCAR. If you ever listen to this, to figure out if you need to give us hard passes or whatever you want to do, define what you're calling a super speedway, because Las Vegas Motor Speedway, 1.5 miles does not drive like a super speedway where you have the definition. In my opinion, the definition of super speedway is you're going you're drafting pretty darn fast, and you have a double yellow line that you can't pass.
Yeah,
Vegas, drop down.
It's almost just like if it's above a mile. If it's 1.5 miles or higher, it's a super speedway to them.
A mile or higher is a super speedway.
Yeah, it's dumb.
So, I mean, they're throwing out... I bet you they're doing that because of the whole intermediate comment.
Because I would call Dover a super speedway before I would call Phoenix or Las Vegas.
Yeah, they run pretty wild there, Dover. But yeah, they call it a super speedway. So they have 3 definitions in here: short track, super speedway, and road course.
Yeah, so it's just over. It could be a mile and over.
So we digress. Mm-hmm. They're going to intermediate. We're going to call them intermediate. The intermediate tracks, we have far too many intermediate tracks.
Yes.
In this sport. I think they need to get rid of a lot more of these double races at different. Bring in more races. I mean, they keep talking about this. They want to bring in more and more. Okay,
but they're taking away. The problem is that what I feel is they're taking away races from unique tracks, and they're keeping the doubles on these 1.5 miles that are boring, and we don't need to go back to them. Okay, fine. It's a racetrack. We go to it. Great, one time a year. But Dover, 1 mile concrete, different. They took their second race away. Pocono only has 3 turns, pretty large track.
2.5 mile track.
It's different. The racing is different. We took a race away from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it doesn't make sense.
No.
The only sense that it's making is that obviously the other ones are making them money or something. People are paying more money to NASCAR to get it. With
the exception of Dover losing one because they dumped that over into Nashville. Which, if you're going to do that, great. Do that for Phoenix. Do that for a Martinsville, or they're not going to do it for Martinsville. They're not going to do it for Richmond, Darlington,
I like
Daytona.
Martinsville.
No, but I'm just saying they're not going to take races away from those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Your Talladega, your Richmond, your Martinsville. I could see them taking something away from Bristol.
They shouldn't.
No, there's some tracks that they're going to take away from that are going to hurt them, and then they have some tracks that they need to take away from. A Vegas, a Phoenix. Why does Homestead only have one race, and it's been one race forever? Questions like that. It's like. I don't know. That's what pops into my head a little bit when it goes through there. I mean, you're bringing Indianapolis back as the actual race.
Finally.
As the oval, as the rectangle, I'll call it, because it's not really an oval, but rectangle. But as Truex is saying, Sonoma's going to be an interesting race this year because it's repaved. Tire fall-off's going to be non-existent there. You took away from. You brought the Roval in and took away from Charlotte. what you did with Indianapolis. So, I don't know. April, and then we bump into April after Richmond, and that's Martinsville. Then you got Texas, which is a dull race. Why do they have all these races? Then you got Talladega, Dover going in. Dover's the last race in April. And then we bump into Kansas, Darlington, All-Star race in North Wilkesboro, and then the Coke 600. If I had my way, we would be going to the Coke 600. That's one race I stinking want to go to. I mean, I think that would be awesome to go to. And I'm not even talking about just camping. Get a hotel if we had to. I want to go to that race. There's something. It just that's a cool race to go to. But anyway, so before we get into the time frame for Kansas, or I'm talking Kansas now, for Phoenix, the other news that popped up that came out, besides there was a Dale Jr. news and he kind of squashed it, where somebody came out and claimed NBC wanted to do a booth, a remote booth for these races, and that production and Junior were getting into a argument because Junior was watching the race through the window, not on the TV. He squashed that and said that's not true. The reason that came out is because Dale Jr. is going to be taking off this year, and he's going to be going to Turner and Amazon Prime for that streaming deal that's going to happen starting next year in the middle. So they got to have somebody. They got to get somebody that people know. But he also came out and announced Bubba Pollard's going to be running his car. I don't know too much about Bubba Pollard. He's going to be running the 88 in here. So it seems like the 88's turning into like the SRX style. The Josh Berrys get these guys into races, which I'm fine with.
I'm fine with
see
too.
how they handle, because it is Xfinity.
Junior's really good at finding good drivers.
He's good at finding good guys, and it doesn't have to be young people. Because look at Barry.
Yeah.
So, also with that said, going into the teams and all that, we said Bubba Pollard is going to be running the 88 in a race. It came out that Ford has demoted Stewart-Haas Racing and has promoted Front Row Motorsports to a top tier Ford team, which, I mean, they were Penske. When we were talking about Penske earlier, it kind of makes sense. Ford's Penske. That's all Ford is now, and that's all Ford's going to be. Stewart-Haas runs their contract at the end of this year for their manufacturer with Ford. Then who are they going to stay with Ford for a few more years, or are they going to go to Chevrolet? I was listening to something earlier.
I think if they're smart, they'd go to Chevrolet because the drivers that they got drove Chevrolet.
Right. And that's one of the rumors out there. Another thing that came out is, are they going to be switching to Honda? Because apparently the Honda talks are heating up real big on that.
That'd be awesome.
But as this one guy, I don't know who it was on a Dirty Mo thing, he's like, oh, that's not going to happen anytime soon because they got all this, that, and this. And he's like, I don't believe NASCAR could keep a secret on doing all this stuff. They wined and dined Honda last year. They wined and dined Honda this year. Who knows? They could have been testing this stuff for a few years and they're in engine development, and they're not talking about it to the public. They believe NASCAR can't keep their mouth shut, and that something would have come out by now because they probably want to pump their chest up.
I don't know that it's NASCAR. I think it's everyone else in the sport. They all love to talk. They're worse. They are worse than women.
Worse than your old Southern women sitting around a table playing Pokino.
They talk about everyone. They rat on everyone. Like,
old women
there is not a secret.
Talking, drinking their sweet tea or whatever,
There's
old
not
Southern
a secret.
Women. No, and I think I think it can be a lot quicker than they think. I think there's probably already been roles moving around, because you got to remember too, you have this manufacturer that has been in motorsports forever.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about IndyCar, because it sounds like they want out of IndyCar because of how IndyCar is being put out there, and with Chevrolet, because I think it's Chevrolet and Honda are the two, and IndyCar the company must be playing favorites to Chevrolet or something. I don't know what's going on there, but Honda wants out of that apparently. But besides that, they're in endurance racing. They're in rally. I think they're in rally car. I could be wrong on that, but they're in so many different motors. They're in motorsport deeper than I think the average American understands.
Oh yeah.
Especially the average NASCAR American, because you're stuck in this thing. And, I've had friends that are like, I don't want to see that. I don't like Toyota winning stuff because I'm still stuck to the old ways of NASCAR when it came to being, it was Dodge, Chevy, Chevy, Dodge, and Ford. Uh-huh. And it wasn't even, we call it Mopar because it was like so many different things besides just Dodge, because you had Plymouth and all that.
Yeah.
That's done. I mean, we got to get that out of the way.
Yeah.
That's done.
Well, and like Honda, like people don't know that either. Like when I was little, we had a slot car track and they were Honda.
Yeah, well,
cars.
Honda's
been in it for a long time.
You know, the Prelude, the Integra, the Integra's been running sport car races forever in a day. But then they're running engines in IndyCar. Yeah. Ford apparently wants out of Formula One now, and the Red Bull deal. I don't know what's going on with that, but that's news that has come out too. Is Ford's trying to get out of their little deal that they struck with Red Bull and Formula One. They were making the engines for that.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts to see what happens, see what comes out going forward. So let's go ahead and get into our schedule here for this weekend. We don't have trucks this weekend. We have ARCA, Xfinity, and Cup Series. So ARCA is going to be practice qualifying, not on TV. Then we go into Cup Series practice on Friday at 5 Eastern. That's going to be on FS1 MRN. Then we have the General Tire 150 ARCA Menards race, 8 p.m. Eastern, FS1 MRN's got the broadcast, not on Sirius XM. Then Saturday we have Xfinity practice and qualifying. 12:30 Eastern is practice. 1 Eastern is qualifying for Xfinity. Those are going to be on FS2 and Sirius XM having the simulcast there, not MRN. So it's so weird how they're not doing such certain things. Cup Series is going to be out on the track qualifying at 2:10 Eastern, FS1 MRN simulcast on Sirius XM. Then we have the call811.com every dig every time 200.
Xfinity has the best names for their races.
4:30 Eastern Saturday, FS1 MRN simulcast on Sirius XM. And then we have the Shiner's Children 500 Cup Series, 3:30 Eastern. Flags probably dropping around 3:45, 4 o'clock. Fox has got this again, MRN. And then we have Sirius XM with the simulcast. And to just kind of go over our stage lengths here on that, we are talking about 60, 125, 127 for 312 laps.
What?
That's our stage lengths. 60, 125,
can we
127.
Please? They need to reevaluate these stage breaks. I'd be happy if they got rid of stage breaks. Like, just keep going.
They don't want that, though, because these races are being too quick. They want more money because they want to show you more commercials, because they don't show you enough commercials during the race. Because if you talk to Fox and all these other people, we don't show that many commercials. I'm sorry, Mike Joy, you're full of poop there. There are a ton of commercials. Ton of commercials.
All right,
because you're sitting.
Count them.
I'm sorry, Mike.
Now.
I'm sorry, Mike. I have a lot of respect for that guy. I don't, whatever. My respect's moot because we don't know him, and I'm just a little peon. But when you're sitting at home and you want to watch the race, and a commercial comes up, or a "Let's go under the helmet with Joey Logano" comes up, and you put the thing in something that's smaller than what would be on a standard tube television from 1994. We're going to go. We're not even going to the 80s. That is ridiculous. That's just uncalled for. And they're like, oh, everything. What, we went side by side for that? Yeah, and the side by side's smaller than my iPad.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's almost pointless to do the side by side. But also too, they also, like, years past, if a crash happened, they'd stop the commercials. Like, they'd finish a commercial and they'd cut in and jump in. We don't do that anymore.
The thing, though,
we can't. We're not allowed to see that stuff.
I'm telling you, NASCAR needs to listen to me, and I can't be the only one saying this. Offer a streaming service.
No commercials.
No commercials. Put it up for $100 a year, something like that. You would get so many people to do this. And and again, before somebody says, well, the broadcasters need a break too, they do this on Peacock, okay? Peacock for the Le Mans race. 24 hours on Le Mans.
Yeah.
On Peacock. And there's times where you don't have a broadcaster. They just show you the race and the cameras are cutting.
Yeah.
Why can't NASCAR do this for 3 hours? Because you're already, complaining and moaning because you cut the stage breaks out of the road courses last year and you lost money because your race was smaller and less time. Okay? So bring it in somewhere else. Why can't these people think of this stuff?
Because I feel like in some ways they're just stuck in their old ways, but yet they're stuck in the bad old ways because they don't keep the good things about the old racing and everything. They get rid of all that and then they keep the crappy stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so again, Sunday, March 10th, 3:30 Eastern, Shiner's Children 500 on Fox. And then you have your call 811 every dig, every time. Don't hit a gas line. Don't hit an electrical line. Whatever you want to call it.
You made that rhyme.
Well, every dig, every time.
I know, you said don't hit a gas line.
Don't hit a gas line. Don't hit an electrical line. I mean,
that's so funny.
Anyway, that's at 4:30 Eastern, so that's probably starting at 5 Eastern. I would really like for NASCAR, and I know why they're going to say this, because we need to save money. The only reason you're talking about saving money is because of 2020 and you did not know how to act. Anyway, bring back more practice for these teams. And
yes.
I bet you, I bet you dollars to donuts, if they brought back more practice for these races, especially these boring A races like last week, where you had John Hunter going out to a 50-second lead.
I don't understand when we go to the race and they're like, oh, there's no practice at this track this week. Why?
Do you know how many people got PO'd because of that going into Daytona?
Yeah,
the
why?
The first time your car's on the track in race trim is during the duels. It's like,
what is going on?
Because they are sitting up here just like our government does by saying, hey, we're keeping all these bad people away or whatever. They're coming out here and saying, hey, look, teams, I'm saving you money. I bet you that's one of the contested arguments in this charter system negotiation that has completely failed at least twice, I'm pretty sure.
I would like to go back to just the regular kind of qualifying too. I don't like this Group A, Group B.
Well,
jump.
at least they changed it now.
They did change it. It's a little bit better.
Well,
but
they changed it now so that if you're in Group A, what is it? Group A has the inside, Group B has, because you would have all of Group A be 5 seconds faster, or Group B would be a lot faster than Group A.
Yeah.
And you'd have these guys starting 20th, 15th, 20th because,
It is slightly better, but why can't we just go back to regular qualifying?
Well,
why are we doing groups?
Not even just regular qualifying. Like, when you say regular qualifying, I'm thinking of like early 2000s, 90s, 80s, 70s, so on, where you just lined up and you ran and that's where you posted.
Yes.
I'm saying, I'm okay with them going back to... Here's all 32 cars. Go out and run. top 15, you're going to move on to the next one.
No, no.
I want
it back to the other one though. So this is the other problem too. That NASCAR's gotten so like we want these charters or anything. You can't get little guys in there anymore. No. Little guys can't go. No. I loved before how you just showed up. They showed up. They had 43 cars on the.
But it's because charters have gotten so expensive. But like Dale Jr. said when he was looking at it, he's like, I can't remember who he was talking about. Ray Abraham, somebody, they were talking about the charters. And the charter came up to the fact of, Junior goes, these things are so expensive and they're so coveted. But then the guy that they was talking to on his podcast said, it's only coveted if you can get rid of it and sell it. You can't get rid of your charter pretty much. I mean, yeah, the smaller guys are moving charters a little bit quicker with like trading cards. Mm-hmm. But like if you want a Penske or somebody like that, or not even a Penske, front row only has 3 cars that run on it. 2 cars are on a charter. They want to pick up a third car. It's almost near impossible because the amount of money you got to shell out, but 2, you have to find somebody willing to part ways with a charter. B.J. McLeod parted ways with his charter. I think that was a smart thing to do. He's like, I only want to run these certain races because these are the races I can feel the most competitive at.
Right.
And then,
which is fine, like I said, but we need more opportunity for smaller guys to come in. Some guy just comes in on the weekend and like blows everyone away, and it's like
they'll tell you
they'll be able to go in the race, but they're like, no.
They'll tell you that's Xfinity. Go to Xfinity.
Yeah, it's dumb.
I don't know what to say about that. We'll find out what happens in the charter conversation going further in the future. But anyway,
I still think the two groups is dumb for qualifying.
I think it is too. I would like them to go top 10, go back out there and rerun, not just.
No, I don't. Why do we need to rerun for qualifying? The whole point is you practice, and then you get the fastest person.
Crappy practice as it is, where you have 15-minute practice.
Well, yeah, if we don't have practice, then do it that way. But we should have practice.
And I'm not even saying go back to 45-minute, hour-long practices.
Just something.
Do 2 20-minute practices. That's less than an hour on the track for these cars, and that's plenty enough time to figure out what's going on with them. But 5-minute practice, 10-minute practice, 20-minute practice? No, I don't think you don't have enough time to go through there. But if you actually had the practices, you would get rid of your pit road speed run through and save time on your Sunday and your Saturday racing, because you wouldn't have to spend an extra 20 seconds doing another pace lap because you got to run guys through pit road speed so they can check their calculations, because they would be doing that during practice like they did back in the day.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the soapbox on that. So you're picking Reddick for Phoenix, right?
Yeah.
I'm going with the safe bet. No, I'm not even going to do that. I think it's going to be Bowman.
No.
Bowman's going to show up and just.
No.
I don't want him to, but I think it's going to be Bowman.
No.
I think a Toyota will come out and I think a Toyota will do well here.
Honestly,
Truex won it 3 years ago, something like that, and he came out and ran away with it too.
I honestly don't know how Bowman is still with Hendrick. He's not that good of a race car driver.
Because he's under
contract.
He
has a terrible attitude.
For crying out loud.
He has a terrible attitude. Well, he did it because of what happened to him last year, probably.
No, I think this happened before that.
He's not that good.
Anyway.
And I don't like his attitude.
So that's that. If you guys want some fun things that happen that come out, because we don't cover it because we put this podcast out, we recorded it on a Tuesday night after everything else, is check out Tyler Purnell on TikTok for your favorite driver's paint scheme rated. It is great.
There's
is hilarious.
Some language.
Yeah,
just so you know, but
it's NSFW, but it's pretty great. So anyway, guys, we will catch you after the Phoenix race. Be sure to, and I'll say it again, like, comment, and share this, and let's get this thing blowing up, as well as have a great week, and be safe out there, and we'll catch you on the flip side.
Bye.
See ya.